Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. I'd like to welcome all the members from our Falah community, anyone else who's logging in to view our programming for our Friday lecture this week. We're very happy to have everyone. We hope that everyone's in the best of health, best of conditions, best of Iman, and they're making the most, inshallah, of their Ramadan, especially in these last 10 days. Today, inshallah, we have someone who, when we were having Jummah physically, had been a khatib for us a few times, and he's a very nice, young, dynamic speaker. And I know the community was very happy to have him physically when we were doing the Jummahs as well. So I thought it'd be a great idea to bring him, inshallah, to give a very nice virtual lecture today. So without further ado, inshallah, I'd like to introduce Brother Haris Farooqi to, inshallah, give us our Friday talk.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair for the introduction. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with all of you today. Thank you so much for welcoming me into your community. And I pray as well that everyone is doing well, that your families are healthy, inshallah, and that we're all able to make the most of these last 10 nights. Today, inshallah, I wanted to speak about, in the reflection of these last nights, start with some stories, but also the topic in general is contemplating the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so contemplating the different signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us in our life and through his Quran and things of that nature. And then also to discuss a really beautiful set of ayat in the Quran, a set of ayat that, in the topic we had mentioned that had the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam weeping all night. And so inshallah, let's start with a quick story, to kick off. And so the story is that a man, a sahabi by the name of Hanzala, comes to Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. He comes to him and he is in a state of kind of panic and in a state of concern, a deep concern. And he goes that, he tells Abu Bakr that, Hanzala has become a hypocrite. In other words, talking about himself, he says, I've become a hypocrite. And obviously a hypocrite is someone who's saying what they don't do, and it's a large accusation, right? So he's saying that about himself. He's freaking out, saying I'm a hypocrite, and saying that Abu Bakr's like, hey, calm down, relax, it's all good. What's going on? Talk to me. What's happening? And he explains the reason I feel like a hypocrite is because when I'm with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's as if I'm seeing hell and heaven in front of my eyes, right? It's as if all of that weighs upon me, and he is so conscious of God, and he has this level of taqwa, right? When he's with the Prophet, he goes, when I'm not with him, then I think about my family, I think about my wife, my kids, my business, the dunya. I'm thinking about all these things. In other words, I'm distracted. I'm not thinking about God to that same extent. And he describes this situation as such. Sayyidina Abu Bakr, he hears this, he goes, subhanAllah, like I'm actually the same way, right? Like I'm actually going through the same thing. And so now he's in that same sense of panic and a bit of concern. They both go to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they go to him and say, Ya Nabi, we, and of course they were in a state of, distress, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sees this, and he goes like, and he tells them that we've become hypocrites, right? We feel like hypocrites, and again the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam goes, what happened? Just talk to me, let's hear what's going on. And they said the same thing, that so and so, like, when we're sitting with you, when you're talking to us, when we're just in your company, we feel the presence of God. We feel like better Muslims, right? And when we're not, we feel like we're attached to the dunya, right? We're thinking about the world, we're thinking about our jobs, we're thinking about our families. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is said to smile when he hears this, and then he takes an oath. He goes, by the one within whose hands my life resides. In other words, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you were in this state all the time, right, that state of God consciousness, the angels would shake your hand and essentially congratulate you, because it's such a high and lofty station. And then he caveats that and says, but sa'atan wa sa'a, meaning there's a time for this and there's a time for that. Meaning there's a time for you to be completely absorbed, completely engrossed in Islam, completely engrossed in your deen, and then there's a time for you to attend to your worldly matters. You have a job, you have a family, you have to take care of them. And so he's just saying there's balance, right? And the Prophet ﷺ is the best of balance, right? So he's teaching us that. Why do I start with this story? We're coming towards the last few days of Ramadan. Everyone, every single year can resonate with the feeling of, the post-Ramadan blues, having this sort of feeling that, I was doing so much in Ramadan, I'm staying up and I'm praying. In Ramadan, I'm reading Quran. In Ramadan, I'm not cursing. In Ramadan, I'm watching what I'm looking at, right? You're doing all of these things in Ramadan, and you slowly feel like as the years go on, they start to chip away. Right? I'm sorry, the months. As the months go on, it chips away, right? Slowly, some of these habits unfold. You go back to your old ways, and then you look forward to the next Ramadan. Inshallah, next Ramadan is going to come. I'm going to go feel the spiritual highs again. Now, naturally, this Ramadan is very different for all of us given the circumstance. And alhamdulillah, it's the way it was. But just a few quick points on this topic of Ramadan coming to a close. First and foremost, I think everyone needs to also realize that it's very normal to feel this way, that you go through this high and a low, because that's what Ramadan really is, right? Ramadan has its specialty, its khas, its uniqueness comes from the factor that we all feel so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this 1 month. And there's an analogy that the scholars give us, is that life as a Muslim is a marathon, but Ramadan is a sprint. Meaning throughout your life, you don't want to do too much too short to the point where you let go of it. But Ramadan is that time when you do sprint, right? You go full speed, you go full steam ahead for a short period of time, exhaust yourself if that's what it means, because you don't want to waste a single minute of it. That leads into the second point of what we take away from Ramadan. There's a concept of istiqamah. There's a very famous hadith, the 21st of Imam Nawawi's 40 collection, where it says, "Qul amantu billahi thumma istaqim," meaning say you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then stay steadfast upon that. So istiqamah is a concept of steadfastness and sticking to something when you do it, right? Sticking to something, being upright. In other words, maintaining consistency in your deeds. And so what we realize is that, yeah, maybe it's not sustainable for me to do 20 rak'ah tarawih every night throughout the year, right? Maybe I can't sustain that. Maybe I can't read, one khatam in a month because one juz a day was a lot for me. But that doesn't mean you completely abandon the Quran the rest of the year, right? So that concept of istiqamah is take a good deed, take a small good deed, be that, whatever it may be, and carry it with you throughout the entire year. So this Ramadan, you started at a baseline and you left higher than where you started, right? Not where you started as well, right? So there's like a net gain, you can think of it. And then lastly, to realize as we're going into these last few nights and, the odd nights in specific, there's a story that I wanted to share because I think this really resonated with me a lot, is that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is having a discussion with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he's talking about how the other communities, the other ummahs of the other prophets, they lived longer lives, like biologically speaking, right? They lived longer lives. We know that some lived many hundreds of years, things of that nature, right? And so he says that how is my ummah going to compare when they have hundreds of years and, we live 50, 60, within that range of years? How are we going to compare? And the answer to that question is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed the ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad, meaning all of us, with a gift that is very unique to just us. Right, and that comes in Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr, that we're blessed with the Laylatul Qadr, right? The night of power is this gift that literally the years of worship that we are not going to be able to do because we are mortal is compensated in that this one night, right, is amplified so much. And so just a quick reminder to all of us that, every single night, make sure to just push a little bit harder, knowing that these are the nights of power and that these are the stronger nights that can get us our reward. Let's segue into the main topic of today, inshallah. So contemplating on the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is a story that will introduce these ayat that I want to talk about today very well. It's a very beautiful hadith. We've all heard components of it before. The Sahaba, after the passing of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would often go to his wives to go to them to ask about certain questions, right? She was the greatest scholar of Islam, Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha. And they would often go to her to ask her questions about fiqh, about Islam, about family, whatever it may be. And then there was often times where they just missed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They just missed him, and they'd go to him and go to his wife and ask, different things about his personality. And so in this hadith, we have them going to Sayyidina Aisha and saying, "Akhbirna bi'ajbi ma ra'ayta min Rasulillahi sallallahu alaihi wasallam." Tell us something wonderful about the Prophet, peace be upon him. Like just enlighten our day. Tell us something we miss him, we want to hear about him. And then she smiles and she says, "Laysa ajiba," meaning what can I tell you that wasn't wonderful, right? What was it wonderful about Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Of course, she's missing her husband too. And she says, "But I will tell you a story." And something that happened that truly stuck with Sayyidina Aisha is that one night she was laying in bed. The Prophet ﷺ entered the room. He comes into bed under the comfort, under the blanket. He lays with her, lays very close with her, having an intimate moment with his wife. And then after some time, he asks her and says, "Can I go and pray?" In other words, can I go pray to my Lord? And he wants to wake up for Qiyamul Layl. He wants to pray in the night. And she says, "I love to lay with you and I love your company. But of course, I want what's making you happy, and you should, worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." In other words, she's giving her permission, saying, "I'm going to miss you, but yeah, sure, no problem." He stands up, he makes the wudu. The hadith says it was a light, quick wudu, and he begins praying. As he's praying, she hears him, and as he's standing, she hears him start to sob, right? And he's crying in his salah. and she's observing this, that he's crying, and she can hear him. And the hadith tells us that his crying extends to a point where his beard is starting to get soaked and is dripping down to his chest. In other words, he's sobbing, right? And he's in ruku and he's sobbing, and he's in sajda and he's sobbing, and this is continuing, and he's literally in a deep state. And you can imagine right now he's laying with his wife, and then he's praying, and something had happened where he's crying to this level, like of this extent. So something happened here. Something's going on with the story, right? And so this continues throughout the entire night. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is in this sense of like deep contemplation and deep, sense of like sadness and kind of concern. And it comes to the point where Sayyidina Bilal in the morning was known to come and wake up the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and come and kind of let him to pray. So Sayyidina Bilal opens the door and knocks on the door, and the door is open. And he sees the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this state, right? Eyes swollen, crying, and his beard soaked and all that. And he sees him, he's shocked, right? He's like, this is the Prophet. He's like, you're treating yourself like this, meaning you're concerning yourself like this. Why are you doing this to yourself when Allah's forgiving your sins of the past and the future? In other words, you have no sins to repent for. Like, what's going on? Like, what's wrong? And he looks at him and he says this famous hadith that we all know: should I not be a grateful servant? Right? Should I not be a grateful servant to my Lord? In other words, that he was praying out of gratefulness, right, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we find out that night, he continues the hadith and he says that on this night, the ayat were revealed to him from Surah Al Imran, from ayah 190, towards the end of the surah, second to last page. He goes, these ayat were revealed to me, and woe to the person who hears these ayat and is not moved. Woe to the person who reads this and isn't in a sense of contemplation, considering like, what have I read, and subhanAllah, like it's hit me. Right? In other words, saying that these are very powerful ayat, moving ayat. And so these ayat that we'll talk about today start with Inna fi khalqis samawati wal ardi wa ikhtilafil layli wan nahari la ayatin li ulil albab. Verily, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and whenever we hear creation of heavens and the earth, it's meant for our imagery to think of everything in between it, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates the heavens, he creates the earth, and everything in between it, everything encompassed within it. Wa ikhtilafil layli wan nahar, and the alternation of the day and the night. Right, in that the day and the night obviously are mutually exclusive. These are signs for the people of understanding. Right, people of understanding. So let's start with the end of the ayah and work backwards. What does it mean to be a person of understanding? If you were to ask anyone, in other words, someone who's wise, no one thinks they're not wise. Right, everyone thinks that they are, obviously have a level of wisdom within. Right, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will dive into what it means to be wise, but let's just look at lexically what al-bab means. Al-bab is a plural of the word lub, which translates to the essence, right? And it literally means what is the essence of a matter, right? Like the essence of Islam, the essence of life. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that the creation of the heavens and the earth, night and day, the fact that we live through these routines, these are signs for people who have a grasp of the essence of life, who understand what our purpose here is, right? And he's giving these signs, we'll say, as things that are things not meant to be far-fetched, nothing that you have to look too far. We don't have to look far to see the skies or to see the earth. We don't have to look far to realize we sleep at night and we're awake during the day, right? And it's very commonsensical to realize that if you try to stay up all night, it's hard. Your body fights you, right? These are natural parts of our circadian rhythms in our life that we're used to, right? And so today, what I think this ayah connects us even more is that, today these ayahs connect us even more because we're in such a circumstance where literally we're all stuck at home. It's Ramadan right now, and one microorganism has literally taken over the entire world and put us into our houses, right? In the span of a couple months. Meaning 1 year ago, we're in Ramadan right now. We're all going to the masjid, we're praying Tarawih together, we're enjoying it, we're preparing for Eid, right? And fast forward, would we have ever thought we were in this situation today? Did anybody plan for this? Did anybody anticipate it? Did any scientist, did any fortune teller, did anybody have any idea that a world pandemic would come and put out the most wealthy and prosperous nation in the world to where we are today? Absolutely not. Right? So what is it saying? That these are signs from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It came out of nowhere. Literally, Wall Street is shut down. The Olympics have shut down. There's no NBA. Makkah is shut down. There's no one praying in Makkah save for a few people. So literally, again, the world has been flipped upside down. And what is this other than a sign for us to contemplate upon, right? Something for us to think deeply on, right? What does it mean for me individually, right? Society is affected, but these signs are for me as an individual. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling me something. Right? And so then let's continue with the next ayah. الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, who are the people of understanding? The people of understanding are those who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when they're standing and when they're sitting and when they're on their side. What is this metaphor representing? Standing, sitting, and on your side. That's essentially all phases of the day. In other words, no matter where you are, the people who are remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a constant state of like taqwa, constant state of remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being conscious of His presence. وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And now there's a whole transition happening, right? It's a bit of a process. You have a person who is going about their life, and I'm sure all of us at one point have thought to ourselves, what is the reason behind coronavirus, right? What is happening with COVID? Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing this, right? These are those contemplating moments where we realize that this person is contemplating about Allah, and you come to a realization, right? And you come to a realization based on this concept of doing fikr, right? Yatafakkaruna means to contemplate deeply, not to brush over matters, not to think of things like yeah, it's no big deal, it's fine, it's just a few months and we're just going to do it, to not look deeper than the surface value, right? And just to backtrack a little bit, yadkuruna and yatafakkaruna, right? The people who do dhikr and the people who do fikr, what is the difference between the two? Dhikr is in reference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yadkuruna Allah, right? You remember, you contemplate about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His majesty, His attributes, His sifat, right? You're contemplating about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that higher level of who is my Lord, who created me, who is the one who dictates how I live my life, how I get my food, how my family lives, right? That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then fikr is contemplation about things of the creation, situation, circumstance, right? That it's a contemplation about things that are happening. And so they're not disjointed, but they have different functions to it. This ayah is mentioning both, right? People who remember Allah and then do fikr in His creation, right? And then يَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And then we have this point again where you're realizing, and the Mufassirin gives such a beautiful analysis of this, saying that the reason he keeps talking about the heavens and the earth, is because we as human beings are given this level of intellect, right, to think of things like purpose. And so a very simple analogy is that if you see a car that's driving very fast, that's about to hit a child, right, and you see this car going full speed, and then all of a sudden you see the car stop immediately and the child is now saved. All of us think, okay, the driver realized that he was making a mistake and he pumped the brakes, or she pumped the brakes, right, and now the kid is saved. The second person, looking a little deeper, will say, yeah, the driver did it, but the car had brakes that worked that fast that were able to, save those auto on brakes. The third person will say, yeah, the car has the brakes, but it's the mechanics behind the car under the hood, that really that make up what's happening. If you had an old car, it wouldn't have saved the child, right? And then you have that last level of understanding, which is that yes, the driver was the one who hit the brakes. Yes, the car maker had made the car. Yes, the materials were comprised of the car. But ultimately, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who saved that child's life, right? And you use the scientific and the logical deductions and reasonings to come to this conclusion that it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who truly determines the fate that we all go through, right? So yes, we understand from a scientific perspective that COVID-19, obviously we know the origins of it and where it come and how it spread and all of this, but ultimately the power of that is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hands. And that's the understanding, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's the one who's dictating it. And there's a beautiful poem which translates to saying that every blade of grass that comes from the ground comes up saying wahdahu la sharika. Every blade of grass that comes out of the ground says there is no God but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is only one. In other words, that we sometimes, being humans, we forget that the trees and the seas and the mountains, all of these belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is His possession. Just as we say inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un about ourselves, the entirety of creation is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's as well. The cars, the planes, whatever it may be, these are things of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's about connecting that, right? That this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the blessings that you and I have in our lives, in our houses, in our families, this is all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when this, again, alladhina yadhkuruna Allah, the person who has now remembered Allah and who has contemplated about these creations and realized, okay, this wasn't for waste. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created me for a reason. There has to be a reason. What happens then? رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. Now he's talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's saying, oh my Lord, you have not created me with no use. You have not created me for no reason. You have not created me without purpose. سُبْحَانَكَ فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. And then he goes to glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are free of imperfection. Subhanak, there is nothing flawed with you. You are absolutely pure of any imperfection or any flaw that you can imagine. You have created all the creation. You are the master of the world. And I'm at this realization, save us from the fire.
right? Realizing that it's come to that point where saved us from. And of course, with that realization, it's belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Belief that He Azza wa Jalla is the one who has created us for this reason. And these ayat, when you think about it, now think of it, let's go backwards to where the Prophet ﷺ is getting these ayat. No one knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better than the Prophet, peace be upon him. No one understands Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attributes better than the Prophet, peace be upon him. No one contemplates about the creation the way the Prophet, peace be upon him, contemplated about the creation. They spoke to him. Rocks would speak to the Prophet. Trees would speak to the Prophet. Animals would speak to the Prophet. So he obviously has a deeper understanding of the creation than we do. And he's hearing these ayat, and he's crying all night long upon these ayat, right? Why? It's because it's telling you that when you go through stress in life, when you're going through an existential crisis, which is the coin term we use in society today, when you're not sure, why am I doing what I'm doing? I'm depressed at work. I'm unhappy with my life. My family situation sucks. When you're going through these realizations, when you're going through any test, you realize, رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. Allah, you did not create me for no reason. You're not putting me through these tests for no reason. You're not challenging me for no reason. You're not blessing me for no reason, right? That there's a purpose at the end of all of this. There's a light at this end of the tunnel that we as Muslims, we have another coming to look forward to. That right now we're hearing about, there's literally, within COVID, alhamdulillah, I'm hoping and praying that a lot of us are safe from this and that we're in good situations, but there are so many people who are in such a worse position than we are, in worse health. And the frontline workers can attest to, they're seeing a war zone in the hospitals. They're seeing people go through so much. We're so blessed to have good health. We're so blessed to have the amenities of a security and of a job, to have risk, to have all of this stuff. Allah has given us the amenities to actually sit there and think about these things deeply. Think about it. If you're on your deathbed and you're diagnosed with the disease with no heal to it, how much contemplation are you forced to at that point, right? You reflect on your life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this luxury of contemplation. It's truly a luxury to have the time and the ability to contemplate upon these matters and to think deeply about it. And so again, bringing it back to this ayah truly puts purpose in the life of the Muslims and gives us this idea of understanding that, yes, things may go up and things may go down. Yes, people are passing away in their 20s and we don't understand how and why from a scientific standpoint, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has a plan. And this isn't it for us. There's more coming. There's more to it. The story is not finished when we leave this dunya. There's another story that we're trying to write for. There's another part to this movie that we want to see, right? As Muslims, that we believe that it doesn't end when we end in this dunya. And truthfully, these are the things that we have to contemplate about on these powerful nights, right? We're at home. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given, again, such a blessing to us that, we always say that we're busy with work. You commute 2 hours a day. You have whatever may be going on. It's hard to find time. And of course, everyone's situation is different. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has literally paused the world. And He paused it in Ramadan, right? Something so crazy that everyone is missing the masjid. Everyone is feeling this sense of emptiness inside. Everyone misses the community. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that I want you to be alone. Why? Right? And that answer is not going to be the same for everyone. We all have our theories. We all have our thoughts on this, right? But the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that we don't come to Him through the same path, right? Different roads to Rome is the phrase, but the different ways to find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, different speeds at which we move to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And no two people will have that same experience, but everyone has the same God, right? No two people will go through the same bumps and bruises and experiences to find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to find that level of meaning, but each and every one of us will end up with the same Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and inshallah the same paradise, right? And that's really the goal that we have here. And for the sake of time, we won't go to the next ayat, but the ayahs continue, and I encourage everyone to read it. It's ayah 190 onwards for Surah Al-Imran, the third surah in the Quran, and the ayahs continue with some beautiful du'as about the person who has now come to this enlightenment. Right? It's an enlightened state to now understand that you have purpose in this world that's beyond the dunya, right? And making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do not humiliate us, make us among the people that you love, and we have heard your message and we believe, and so on and so forth. And it continues as such. And so those are the ayat that I want to talk again, that truly move the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and should move each and every one of us. And inshallah, for the sake of time, we'll end here. Jazakallah khair for all your time. I truly appreciate all of those who've dialed in. I pray that everyone's families are well. I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to take advantage of these powerful nights and to make Laylatul Qadr the night that we have done most of our ibadah, and to not make this the last Ramadan that we have seen as a community, and to grant shifa and all those who are sick. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you so much, Brother Harris. It was a very nice, engaging talk. I know that these last 10 ayahs of Surah Al Imran that we've that just throughout this month, it was one of the verses that Qari Fawad recited one night. when we had Sheikh Mendes and Sheikh Yasser Fahmi as guest speakers. Both of them mentioned these last verses of Surah Al Imran. And again, Brother Haris gave a very nice, exhilarating talk on these verses. So it's just something that we should probably keep in mind and whatnot, especially in this time when we're trying to all reconnect with the Quran. Maybe it's a good idea to go back, review them, and keep this in mind even past Ramadan. So inshallah, I know we've asked for some questions. I know Brother Haris, he has deferred on some questions, saying that, he's earlier to me, he did mention that he is, he doesn't want to, doesn't want to answer certain questions if he's not too comfortable, because, certain questions maybe for people, from a scholarship perspective, he may not be fitted to answer them, and that's, alhamdulillah, I really appreciate that on his perspective. But if Brother Haris, if you have anything else you'd like to add, alhamdulillah, we can, we'll be happy. I know we're kind of going to, you mentioned the NBA briefly, but we're going into the fourth quarter of Ramadan now, the last few minutes. So if there's any other last nasihas you want to give the community.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair, and I appreciate it. And to reiterate what Brother Nisar had said as well, I'm not a scholar, of course, so that's why I'm going to defer the questions, inshallah, to the scholars of the community. In terms of any final parting advice, I think it's more so advice to myself, to be honest. It's that, these last nights, when we are so used to a sense of, and this is my own reflection, of course, is that we're so used to a sense of convenience in the masjid. You show up to the masjid, Sheikh Fuad's going to lead salah all night. You show up to the masjid and he's going to read a beautiful dua for 35 minutes that we're all going to be crying because it's so powerful, right? You go to the masjid and you're provided the opportunity to donate to the community, right? You're given all these platforms that's convenient, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us the chance to have to do one extra step along the way, right? One extra thing to prove that we're truly doing this, right? So I think it's truly a good calibration of our compasses, right? And so that extra effort, of course, does not go unrewarded. And so just a reminder from myself and to myself is that to not forget all the good deeds we would have done in the community, because they can all be done otherwise, right? Whether that be sharing salam with your community, donating to your local masjid, donating to charitable causes, things of that nature.
So just one quick thing that someone from the community did want to know, get your perspective on. And we asked some other people as well. So it's always nice to get different people's perspectives, since there's certain things that hit certain people, certain things that other people may be more inclined to do. Is on a personal level, from you after Ramadan, is there something that you like to do that kind of helps keep you in that same mode and kind of keeps you charged from a religious perspective throughout the other 11 months of the year, inshallah?
Yeah, subhanAllah, it's tough to answer this one, because normally you're coming out of a masjid in Ramadan, right? And so you have community engagements. I'll give you an example. For me, every Ramadan, it's always like try to get some amount of salahs in the masjid, right? SubhanAllah, we're not in a circumstance where we are currently able to do that. So for me, I think the biggest takeaway right now in terms of post-Ramadan has been, you have to now make such an active effort to check on community members, and you have to call your aunt, you have to call your cousins, you have to call your friends, right? You have to put an effort out there. You're not going to stumble upon somebody at a local dawah or at the masjid, right? So it's this extra layer of needing to put in effort. And so for me, I think it's about carrying those habits forward and not doing it out of stuck at home again too much, right? So that's one of those. The sense of community, I think, is that it's a little bit back to the old days of where you have to actually go and put that first foot forward to connect with people.
MashaAllah. Yeah, it's very good nasiha. And on that, I'll let it. I know we all have to go and pray our zuhr and whatnot, so I'll let it be. But this is a very good reminder. Inshallah, to everyone else in the community, we will have our normal programming with Qari Fawad tonight at 9 p.m. And inshallah, look forward to having everyone join us for that programming as well, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan, Jazakumullah, Brother Haris. And we look forward to having you back, inshallah, for the either virtual talks, or definitely when we start having physical Jummahs again, inshallah, we'll look to have you with us again.
Inshallah, Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.